Well, of course, no good short game can be complete without a really good sand technique. As always, at every level, I like to go into a little review of the basic fundamentals, and then we're going to come right back and learn some really fun shots. Let's go ahead and do that, and we'll be right back. Once you understand the impact, though, it is made a little bit easier. Now, I've got a news flash for you, and that is that the club never touches the ball in the sand bunker. That's right. The club actually hits the ball in a way that creates a cushion of sand that the ball rides out on. That's maybe why some of you have struggled as you're trying to figure out some way to catch that ball clean. But what happens is, when you're trying to pick the ball clean out of there, the swing is not going very fast. So what happens is if you hit even the slightest grain of sand behind the ball, it won't get out of the trap. So you may find that you're hitting 1 and 2 and 3 and it's not going anywhere. So now the pros know this. They know that if they try to chip it with a small swing that it won't get out and that contact becomes a serious issue. So what they do is they say, okay, I'll just go ahead and hit it hard and hit behind, creating a cushion of sand that the ball rides out on. So that's the way it works. That's why it's so different, and you have to understand the technique to do that. So again, if you've struggled in the sand bunker, hopefully the next few minutes will clarify it for you. Now, a sand wedge is a sand wedge because of this back part. That's called the flange of the club, and it's very, very important. To make use of this area, though, this flange part of the club, we have to turn the club face a little bit open or to the right. You can see when it's square that the flange is not exposed. When I turn the club face to the right, the flange becomes exposed, and it creates a situation where this bottom part is facing up a little bit. That makes it act a lot like a rock on a pond where it's going to skip across the pond. If it turns down, it's going to dig. So we want to have this situation where the bounce is going to help us, that flange, where the club will not dig too deeply. Turning the club face open to the right, however, is going to make the ball go to the right. So what do I have to do? That's right, aim a little bit to the left to compensate. Simple. Aiming the club face to the right, that exposes the flange. Aiming myself to the left, that's going to compensate for the ball flying out to the right. Now, I talked a minute ago about how I want the club to contact the ground first, to go ahead and create a cushion of sand for that ball to ride out on. That's going to be very important. So to do that, I need to have the ball a little more forward in my stance, up by my left foot a little bit. Club face to the right, I've got myself to the left. So now I've created a situation where I'm ready to hit the ground early. Now, the real kicker for this shot is that the swing is the same. That's right, it's not some unusual motion that you're going to make. You should be able to practice for an hour in the bunker and go back over to the driving range and hit the ball just fine. It's the same swing. Luckily also, because you may spend a round or 2 or even 3 where you're not in the sand bunker at all. So you don't want to have some strange swing that you're practicing just for this one little shot. Luckily, it's the same swing. Now, as I set up to the left, again compensating for that club face being to the right, I'm going to go ahead and make an absolutely normal swing right where my body is going. Now again, this is very, very important. You will hear and read sometimes that you want your swing to cut across the ball in the sand bunker. Well, it does cut across the ball, but not because of your swing, it's done because of your stance. If I aim to the left and make my normal swing, the swing will cut slightly across it. You know, in the New Orleans Classic a few years ago, this case in point really stood out, and that was Blaine McAllister, a great player on the PGA Tour and a tour player for many years. He had to par the last hole to win the tournament. Well, he bunkered himself on the last hole, and what happened was he had kind of a long bunker shot, not super long, he was still in the green side bunker. So he set up to hit his shot, club face well open, body aiming to the left to get ready to hit the shot. But then, unfortunately, he added a very exaggerated out-to-in motion. So with his body already to the left, once he added that to his swing, now the club cut across the ball viciously. Well, when you do that so much, it doesn't have enough forward momentum. It won't drive the ball out forward. So what happens is he got up and hit the shot, and because it glanced across it in such an exaggerated fashion, the ball only went out a few yards onto the putting green. He wasn't able to make his par putt, so he went into a playoff. Well, it happened again in the playoff. He bunkered himself again. Same thing. He went ahead and made his setup well across it with the face open, but then he added to it again an outside backswing, exaggerated. So he actually left the ball in the bunker on the first playoff hole, and then he hit it out the same way where it didn't get the distance that he needed. So again, we need to watch out that we don't have that swing altering additionally to that stance. Once you make your stance over there, the swing itself is perfectly normal. I can't emphasize this enough. It must be your normal swing when you're in the sand bunker. It's not an unusual motion. So let's go ahead and give it a go. Club face to the right. I've got myself to the left. And again, I'm going to go ahead and make a nice normal backswing, nice normal swing right along my body line. Taking a closer look at it, you see the club face pointing to the right of target and my body pointing to the left of target to compensate for that. This is a glancing blow situation, so the ball doesn't go right where I'm aiming with my body, nor right where the club face goes, so the flagstick is in between those two lines. Once I go ahead and set up that way, it's a normal swing right along my body line. Now, the more exaggerated I have the club face open and the more my body is to the left, the higher and shorter the ball will go. I can also swing a little bit harder or a little bit easier to vary the distance of the shot. You can see from the front that I have the ball positioned up here by my left heel. I do that because I want to hit the ground before I get to the ball, and putting it more forward helps me to do that. Then I make a normal swing right along my body line. Well, maybe that was worth the price of admission right there. Understanding that technique is huge in being able to get out of the sand bunkers. Now, every once in a while you get thrown a curveball, though, and I want to talk about some of the different ground conditions you're going to see out on the golf course. This particular lie, I have very, very little sand in here. It's very hard packed. It's got a hard base right behind it. Now, if I use my typical sand technique, where I want to hit that 3 to 5 inches behind it, well, it's going to skip into the back of the ball. It basically rebounds and doesn't get underneath it. So what I need in this situation is to take that bounce of the club and neutralize it a little bit. I'm not going to turn the club face open so much. I need to play it square so that the club now digs a little bit more into the ground. As I play this shot, that's going to help, but then I need to add the feeling of going up and down a little more with my hands. It's going to feel like a steeper motion or going more up into the air. I'm not a big fan of these muscles, these little hinging muscles in this game, but on this particular shot, I need them. I'm going to hinge the club up a little more sharply than usual, and I'm going to drive the club down a little more sharply than usual. Up and down strong. You'll find that even the hardest packed ground, if you play it with a square face and up and down sharp, you can still get to it pretty well. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. If anything, in terms of the stance, you can have the ball between your feet. If it's really bad and hard packed, you can go even a little bit more back in your stance. Setting up with the club face not turned open but fairly square, up and down sharp. That can be a really tricky shot, but you'll see it out on the golf course sometimes. You need to know how to handle it. Now here's a tricky one. This is one I call the sneaky bad lie. Why? Because the ball looks like it's sitting just fine, but it has this high area of sand right behind it. Remember how when we're swinging into the sand shot, we don't want that club to dig too deeply. Well, now we need it to dig more deeply because the ball's actually below the surface of the sand a little bit. Remember, the club's going to be passing through right this area. So this shot actually acts a lot like a buried bunker shot. So I need to play it in a similar fashion. It's maybe not so bad that it's buried, but it is down there. I can play it with a club face that's a little bit open, but I need that steep angle of approach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hinge my wrists a little more than normal and drive it down sharp. So again, even though this lie looks fine with the ball, this is actually a very tough and tricky shot. Up and down aggressively with those wrists, up and down into the sand. The sneaky bad lie, it can get you if you don't know how to play it. Watch out for what the club has to pass through on its way to the ball. It's not the only factor how it's sitting, it's about that approach also. That's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I know I did. Well, now that you've learned a little bit more about technique, it's time to put that knowledge to work through practice. Don't expect every bit of improvement to come overnight, but if you can keep after it and review this tape often, you'll find yourself doing better in no time. Make sure to visit our website at golflevels.com. I'm Roger Gunn, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next level.